The skeletal remains of skyscrapers clawed at a perpetually bruised sky, monuments to a forgotten ambition. Dust, thick and fine, coated everything, carrying the scent of decay and distant, metallic rain. Cale knelt, his breath misting in the chill air within the hollowed-out carcass of what was once a grand department store. His fingers, scarred and calloused, sifted through a pile of iridescent plastic shards, the detritus of a civilization that had crumbled. He wasn't looking for anything specific, just anything. Anything that spoke of life before the Great Silence. His gaze snagged on a small, battered toy, a brightly colored, articulated robot, missing an arm and half its head. A child's toy. His throat tightened, a familiar ache blooming in his chest. Cale, a grizzled veteran of humanity's agonizing last stand, now existed as an exile, marooned on this near-abandoned Earth. The interstellar war, a brutal, relentless onslaught that had swept across the cosmos, had left humanity fractured, scattered, and, he believed, largely obliterated. He was one of the few, the very few, who had somehow endured the initial cataclysm, only to be left behind, a ghost haunting the grave of his own species. His memories were his only constant companions, vivid, haunting echoes of a life irrevocably lost. The face of his wife, her infectious laughter, the excited chatter of his daughter as she played with her own brightly colored toys. Billions gone, in the blink of an eye, or so it felt. Every sunset painted the same canvas of despair, each sunrise a cruel reminder of another day spent in this solitary purgatory. He carried a crushing weight of survivor's guilt, a constant thrum beneath his ribs, reminding him of all those he couldn't save, all those he had left behind in the chaos. The loneliness was a palpable entity, a silent predator that stalked his every waking moment, and chased him even into his fitful dreams. He believed, with a certainty that gnawed at his soul, that humanity was fundamentally fragmented, scattered beyond repair, reduced to mere whispers in the vast, indifferent expanse of the galaxy. Hope, he had long concluded, was a dangerous, seductive illusion, a cruel trick of the mind designed to prolong suffering. He clung to the past, to the tangible remnants of what once was, because the future offered nothing but an endless, echoing void. He had seen the last embers of human civilization flicker and die, witnessed the exodus of the desperate few, felt the tremor of the last starship leaving Earth's orbit. He was convinced that what remained of humankind were scattered, broken fragments, and he was one of the loneliest pieces. Every relic he unearthed, every faded photograph, every forgotten chime of a child's toy, served only to deepen his conviction that the narrative of humanity had been written, sealed, and sorrowfully concluded. There was no more to tell, no new chapters to begin. Just the quiet, relentless march of time across a dying world. This desolate, ruined planet was his tomb, and he, its sole, living mourner. Don't forget to subscribe for more compelling stories. This desolate, ruined planet was his tomb, and he, its sole, living mourner. His routine, a punishing choreography of survival, was punctuated by the rhythmic sweep of his handheld scanner, a relic from before the war. Its monochrome display flickered faintly as he navigated the treacherous rubble. He meticulously catalogued debris, distinguishing between salvageable tech and mere industrial waste, his mind a steel trap for identifying objects that might offer a momentary respite from the gnawing hunger or the pervasive chill. One frigid afternoon, while sifting through the skeletal remains of what was once a downtown financial district, his scanner emitted a series of unfamiliar pings. Not the usual crackle of atmospheric static, nor the familiar, decaying signatures of pre-war electronics. These were distinct, rhythmic bursts of energy, unlike anything his ancient equipment had ever registered. Cale initially dismissed the readings. His world was a cacophony of dying signals, remnant energy from weapons long silent, or the slow, agonizing decay of a planetary power grid. Anomalies were common. His life was an anomaly. He attributed the strange spikes to some decaying satellite's last gasp, or perhaps a localized geomagnetic disturbance, a lingering consequence of the orbital bombardment that had stripped Earth of its protective layers. He simply adjusted his scanner's filters, attempting to tune out the persistent interference, and continued his painstaking search for viable power cells or uncontaminated food rations. The desolate landscape continued to be his primary antagonist, a silent, unyielding foe that tested his endurance daily. The constantly shifting dunes of pulverized concrete threatened to bury him alive, the corroded metal skeletons of buildings could collapse at a moment's notice, and the extreme weather shifts, from scorching radiation-laced winds to freezing blizzards, were a constant, deadly hazard. Yet, his internal despair, a far more insidious enemy, often proved the most taxing. It was a weariness that seeped into his bones, a lethargy that whispered promises of eternal rest, urging him to simply lie down and let the dust claim him. Then there was the lingering, almost phantom threat of remaining hostile alien patrols. Though rare now, the memory of their sleek, silent dreadnoughts scouring the surface for any sign of human resistance was etched into his psyche. He'd seen the aftermath of their patrols, the telltale scorch marks, the impossibly precise surgical strikes that left nothing but dust. Every shadow held a potential threat, every distant hum sent a jolt of primal fear through his system. He constantly scanned the skies, a habit ingrained from years of war, even though the probability of an active patrol now was infinitesimally small. Still, the fear kept him sharp, kept him moving, kept him alive. The energy readings, however, persisted. They were faint, almost imperceptible, but they followed a pattern, a subtle, almost intelligent rhythm that defied his dismissive explanations. He found himself subconsciously tracking them, noting their periodic fluctuations, even as he consciously tried to ignore them. He pressed on, his focus narrowed to the task at hand, scavenging for the scraps that would ensure his next day's survival. He tried to drown out the constant, echoing thoughts of his lost family with the monotonous rhythm of his work, the scraping of his boots against rubble, the mechanical whir of his ancient tools. He'd learned to compartmentalize, to wall off the grief, to bury the love and the pain beneath layers of grim determination. He told himself these faint signals were just another ghost in the machine, another dying gasp from a dead world. Nothing more. But deep down, a tiny, almost extinguished ember of curiosity flickered, a faint counterpoint to his overwhelming despair. He tried to convince himself that it was a trick of the light, a faulty sensor, anything but a genuine, inexplicable anomaly. His logic argued vehemently against any sense of hope, any hint of something new or profound emerging from the ashes. There was nothing left but decay and echoes. He repeated this mantra to himself, a shield against the dangerous allure of the unknown. But deep down, a tiny, almost extinguished ember of curiosity flickered, a faint counterpoint to his overwhelming despair. He tried to convince himself that it was a trick of the light, a faulty sensor, anything but a genuine, inexplicable anomaly. His logic argued vehemently against any sense of hope, any hint of something new or profound emerging from the ashes. There was nothing left but decay and echoes. He repeated this mantra to himself, a shield against the dangerous allure of the unknown. Yet, the persistent energy readings soon became impossible to ignore. What had started as faint, almost ephemeral pings now pulsed with a stronger, more localized intensity. They weren't just random fluctuations anymore. They exhibited a rhythmic pattern, a deliberate cadence that suggested an underlying intelligence. Kale's battered scanner, usually so prone to false positives, began displaying distinct wavelengths and energy signatures that defied classification within his ancient databanks. These weren't the ghostly remnants of pre-war human technology, nor did they align with the destructive, chaotic signatures left by the alien invaders. They were entirely new, utterly alien, yet somehow orderly. The anomalies weren't dissipating as he'd expected. Instead, they were concentrating, drawing closer, emanating from a cluster of collapsed structures in a sector of the ruined city he had long considered fully scavenged and devoid of interest. He had dismissed that area for years, its dense rubble and precarious overhangs making it too risky for minimal reward. A flicker of that long-dormant scientific curiosity, a vestige of the brilliant astrophysicist he had been before the war, ignited within him. It was a faint spark, barely visible beneath the layers of cynicism and grief, but it was there. He couldn't shake the feeling that dismissing these readings now would be a profound oversight, perhaps even dangerous. The sheer novelty of the signatures, their persistent regularity, finally chipped away at his ingrained reluctance. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that whatever was generating these signals was not supposed to be here, not on this dead world. He had to investigate. With a heavy sigh that stirred the dust motes around him, Cale began the meticulous process of preparing his ancient, patched-up reconnaissance vehicle, a repurposed civilian ground skimmer, jury-rigged with makeshift armor and an array of salvaged sensors. Its battered hull bore the scars of countless near misses, its once sleek lines now a testament to survival through sheer mechanical will. He checked the power cells, calibrated the shield emitters, and loaded his few remaining energy cells into the weapon mounts. He ran diagnostics on the long-range comms, though he knew they were more for psychological comfort than actual utility. There was no one left to talk to. His movements were precise, economical, honed by years of solitude and self-reliance. Each step was a silent battle against the inertia of despair. The journey to the anomaly's origin point was slow and treacherous. The ground skimmer, groaning under the strain, navigated through treacherous debris fields and overgrown flora that had reclaimed vast swathes of the city. Twisted rebar and collapsed ferrocrete formed a labyrinth, a testament to civilization's swift demise. As he drew closer, the energy readings intensified, bathing his cockpit display in a soft, pulsating glow. The air itself seemed to hum with a subtle, resonant frequency, a vibration that Cale felt deep in his bones. This was no malfunction, no dying gasp of old tech. This was active, deliberate, and undeniably present. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of careful maneuvering, Cale reached the coordinates indicated by his scanner. It was a sprawling, previously unmapped sector of the ruined city, choked by decades of unchecked growth. Vines as thick as his arms snaked through shattered windows, and hardy, mutated flora had burst through concrete, transforming the urban decay into a grotesque, verdant wilderness. He powered down the skimmer, its sudden silence amplifying the rhythmic hum in the air. He deployed his thermal imager, sweeping it across the dense vegetation and broken structures. At first, there was nothing but the heat signatures of small, scurrying scavengers. Then, his breath hitched. Faint, ephemeral blips danced on the scope, moving with a fluid, almost ethereal grace. They were unlike any native wildlife, too large for vermin, too organized for random movement. And they were definitely non-human. Yet there was something in their movement, a deliberate, cautious quality, that didn't immediately scream hostile. It was an unexpected observation, a nuance that sent a shiver of unsettling anticipation down Cale's spine. Something was moving within the rubble, something alien, something new, and possibly, something entirely unforeseen. The thermal blips solidified into hazy, shimmering forms barely discernible through the dense foliage and swirling dust. Cale, his senses on high alert, eased his heavily modified, ancient assault rifle from its magnetic holster on the skimmer's interior panel. The familiar weight of the weapon in his hands was a cold comfort, a psychological anchor in this strange, unfolding mystery. He switched his vision enhancement to passive full spectrum, hoping to neutralize the cloaking technology he suspected these entities employed. And there they were. Shimmering cloaked figures, moving with an unnerving silence among the skeletal remains of what was once a towering office complex. They flowed rather than walked, their outlines distorted by an energetic field, making it impossible to discern any physical features. His training, honed through countless skirmishes against various alien aggressors, screamed threat. His finger instinctively found the safety catch, his thumb hovering over the fire selector. He prepared for combat, for the sudden, chaotic burst of energy weapons and the metallic tang of ozone that always preceded a fight. Every instinct, every fiber of his being, was primed for a brutal encounter. He knew the drill: identify the most dangerous target, prioritize, neutralize. He tracked their synchronized movements, his targeting reticle dancing across their indistinct forms. They were smaller than any military-grade alien scout he had ever encountered, yet their stealth technology seemed far more advanced. As he watched, one of the figures, noticeably smaller than the others, stumbled slightly on a loose piece of rubble. A glint of something metallic caught his eye as it slipped from its grasp and tumbled to the ground. The figure paused, its shimmering cloak momentarily flickering like disturbed water. As it bent to retrieve the fallen object, the energetic field around it briefly wavered, revealing for a fleeting instant a glimpse of slender limbs, an impossibly delicate neck, and large, dark eyes. It was a non-human physical form, undoubtedly alien, yet it seemed vulnerable. There was no hardened carapace, no menacing weaponry visible, just a fragile, almost childlike grace in its movements. The cloak quickly settled back into place, but the image was seared into Cale's mind. The sight disarmed him in a way no enemy weapon ever could. His finger, poised to unleash a torrent of plasma, hesitated. His training, a lifetime of combat conditioning, screamed threat. Every tactical assessment, every battlefield lesson, dictated immediate engagement. These were unknown, alien entities on Earth, cloaked, operating with stealth. They were a potential invasion force, or at the very least, dangerous infiltrators. But something about the small figure's movements, that brief, almost innocent reveal, resonated with a long-buried part of him. It wasn't the menacing, predatory stalk of a warrior, but the gentle, slightly awkward motion of a young being reaching for something precious. It lacked the aggressive posture, the deliberate menace he had come to associate with every alien force he had ever faced. The emotional tremor that ran through him was disorienting, a stark contradiction to the cold, calculating logic of survival. He held his fire, his rifle still aimed, but his finger unpressed from the trigger. A knot formed in his stomach, a strange cocktail of caution and an unbidden, nascent curiosity. This encounter was not playing out according to any script he knew. The vulnerability he had witnessed in that split second felt achingly familiar, not alien at all. It was the kind of vulnerability one saw in a child, regardless of species, simply trying to pick up a dropped toy. He watched, breath held, as the small, cloaked figure recovered its dropped item, its companion standing watch, equally silent and unmoving. He watched, breath held, as the small, cloaked figure recovered its dropped item, its companion standing watch, equally silent and unmoving. Then, as it began to move away, the small figure fumbled again. This time, the object slipped through its delicate grasp and landed with a soft, metallic chime, rolling a few feet across the cracked pavement. Its companions paused, but the young alien seemed too flustered, too embarrassed, to retrieve it immediately. A wave of shimmering energy passed over the group, and they melted back into the shadows and dense foliage, momentarily vanishing from Cale's sight. But the object remained, glinting faintly in the dim light filtering through the urban canopy. Cale's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. That brief moment of vulnerability, that clumsy fumble, had solidified his decision. Caution, for the first time in years, took a back seat to an overwhelming, inexplicable pull. He rose slowly from his concealed position behind a collapsed concrete barrier, his rifle still held ready, but lowered slightly. His eyes were fixed on the metallic glint. He moved with practiced stealth, each step deliberate, his boots barely disturbing the dust. As he drew closer, the object resolved itself from a mere glimmer into a distinct shape. It was a locket, intricately carved, made of a dull, aged silver that had once been polished to a brilliant sheen. A wave of cold shock washed over him, momentarily stealing his breath. His vision tunneled, the ruined city fading into a blur, leaving only the locket in sharp, agonizing focus. He recognized it instantly. Every intricate detail, every delicate curve of the filigree, was seared into his memory. It was identical, absolutely identical, to the one he had given his wife decades ago, on their 10th anniversary. A gift, carefully chosen, symbolizing their enduring love. His hand trembled as he reached for it, his fingers brushing against the cool metal. He thumbed the delicate clasp, which opened with a soft, familiar click. Inside, shielded by a thin, transparent pane, were 2 miniature photographs. On one side, his own youthful face, smiling, eyes full of hope. On the other, his wife. Her vibrant brown hair, her sparkling green eyes, the faint freckles dusting her nose, all captured in that tiny, cherished image. She was smiling, her head tilted slightly, an expression of pure, unadulterated joy. It was unmistakably her. Cale felt a dizzying lurch, as if the ground beneath him had dissolved. His mind reeled, struggling to reconcile the impossible. How could this alien child, glimpsed only moments ago in this desolate, forgotten corner of earth, possess his wife's locket? The one he believed had been lost with her, along with everything else, in the final, fiery days of the war. A torrent of emotions, long suppressed and buried beneath years of grief and stoic endurance, erupted within him. Disbelief, sharp and agonizing, tore through his carefully constructed shields, followed by a fresh, potent wave of grief for the life he had lost, for the dreams that had been shattered. But then, an even more powerful, bewildering sensation began to bloom in the ashes of his despair, a desperate, frantic hope. A hope so intense, so unexpected, it felt like a physical blow. Could she have survived? Was it possible, against all odds, against every logical conclusion he had drawn over the desolate decades, that she was alive? Or, if not alive, then how had this locket, this most intimate and personal of relics, come to be in the possession of an alien child? The question swirled, a maelstrom in his mind, demanding answers he never thought he would seek again. The locket, warm now from his touch, felt like a beacon, a fragile anchor in a suddenly tumultuous reality. The locket, warm now from his touch, felt like a beacon, a fragile anchor in a suddenly tumultuous reality. Cale, discarding decades of ingrained caution and the tactical wisdom that kept him alive, emerged fully from cover. His mind, still reeling from the impossible discovery, focused solely on the shimmering figures that had momentarily vanished. "Wait!" he bellowed, his voice raw and unused, echoing strangely in the stillness of the ruined city. His rifle, forgotten for a moment, hung loosely in his grasp, its muzzle pointing harmlessly at the ground. The cloaked figures, startled by the sudden, guttural sound, shimmered back into clearer visibility, their forms coalescing from the shadows. The small alien child, whose fleeting vulnerability Cale had glimpsed, instantly registered his presence. Its large, dark eyes, wide with surprise and a flash of fear, fixated on Cale, then on the locket still clutched in his hand. With a quick, defensive reflex, the child snatched the locket from Cale's numb fingers, pulling it close to its chest, an almost human gesture of protection. A soft, high-pitched vocalization, akin to a distressed chirp, escaped its lips. Cale took a step forward, his hands raised in a gesture he hoped conveyed peace, though his internal turmoil was anything but. "Please!" he rasped, his voice hoarse. He pointed to the locket, then to himself, then made a sweeping gesture indicating memory, trying to convey his connection to the object, to its history, to his wife. He fumbled for his ancient, universal translator, a device he hadn't used in decades, its dusty interface flickering to life with a faint hum. Who are you?" he managed, the translated words sounding stilted and mechanical through the small speaker. Where did you find this?" The alien child tilted its head, its expressive eyes, a deep, liquid violet, studying him with an intensity that pierced through his emotional haze. It uttered a series of complex, melodic sounds, completely foreign to Cale's ears, even through the rudimentary translator. The device sputtered, struggling to process the intricate phonemes, spitting out garbled, nonsensical fragments of speech. The communication barrier was absolute, a wall of incomprehension between them. Yet the child's fear was palpable, its slender form trembling ever so slightly as it clutched the locket tighter, its gaze unwavering. As Cale attempted another clumsy phrase, the other cloaked figures moved. They emerged fully from the shadows, their cloaks shimmering away to reveal their true forms. They were indeed benevolent-looking beings, tall and slender, with multiple graceful tentacles that extended from their upper torsos, flowing gently as they moved. Their heads were smooth, almost cephalopod-like, with those same large, intelligent, violet eyes that were now fixed on Cale with a wary curiosity. They moved with a deliberate slowness, interposing themselves between Cale and the small alien child, forming a protective crescent. They weren't aggressive, there were no overt threats, no weapons deployed. But their posture was undeniably defensive, their collective gaze conveying a clear message: approach no further. The child, now nestled safely behind the largest of the tentacle beings, continued to vocalize softly, its melodic sounds now carrying a note of apprehension rather than fear. One of the adult aliens, taller and seemingly older, extended a single tentacle, not towards Kale, but in a slow, calming gesture towards the child, a silent reassurance amidst the sudden tension. Kale lowered his rifle entirely, letting it rest against his leg. He understood their protectiveness. He would have done the same for his own. He was an unknown, a stranger, a human whose species was largely believed to be extinct, holding a relic of immense personal value. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint hum of Kale's struggling translator and the rhythmic, soft chirps from the young alien. This was not the hostile encounter he had prepared for, but something far more complex, far more bewildering. It was a confrontation, yes, but one steeped in unspoken questions and an overwhelming sense of fragile discovery. He could feel the weight of countless unseen possibilities hanging in the dusty air. Kale, recognizing the inherent fragility of the situation, slowly lowered his rifle to the ground, a deliberate act of disarmament intended to convey his peaceful intentions. He pointed once more to the locket, drawing a circle in the air with his finger, then tapping his own chest, and finally, gesturing towards the young alien. It was a crude, desperate attempt at communication, an offering of shared meaning beyond the limitations of language. The adult aliens, their large violet eyes tracking his every movement, exchanged what appeared to be silent glances, a flicker of understanding passing between them. They maintained their protective formation, but the tension in their collective posture eased infinitesimally. They were wary, yes, but no longer overtly hostile. A fragile truce, built on mutual curiosity and the unspoken reverence for the locket, had begun to form. One of the adult aliens, the tallest of the group, slowly extended a single, slender tentacle, its tip hovering inches from Kale's outstretched hand. It was a gesture of cautious acceptance, an invitation to approach, but under their watchful gaze. Kale, heart thrumming with a mixture of apprehension and surging hope, took a tentative step forward. The young alien, still clutching the locket, watched him with wide, unblinking eyes. The adult alien then gently nudged the child forward, encouraging it to interact. The child, responding to the adult's encouragement, began a series of rapid, pictorial gestures. Its slender fingers moved with surprising dexterity, tracing shapes in the air, creating ephemeral images Kale struggled to interpret. It pointed to the locket, then mimed the act of finding it amidst a field of shattered debris, much like the landscape around them. Then, it pointed upwards, towards the sky, and made a sweeping motion, indicating a long journey. The adult alien supplemented the child's narrative with soft, complex vocalizations, a language of clicks, whistles, and deep, resonant hums that transcended Kale's broken translator. They were trying to explain, to depict the locket's journey, its path from a lost relic to a cherished possession. Through these combined efforts, the child's intricate pantomime, and the adult's emotive vocalizations, Kale began to piece together fragments of a story. The young alien seemed to be describing how the locket had been given to it, not found, but bestowed. It mimed human figures, specifically one with long hair and a kind expression, a figure Kale instantly recognized as his wife from the miniature photograph. The implied narrative was one of exchange, of a gift given and received. The tentacle beings, with their gentle demeanor and the child's trusting nature, didn't seem like scavengers or thieves. They were guardians, protectors. The locket, Kale realized with a jolt, wasn't just something they had found. It was a memento, a treasured item handed down, a beacon of lost hope. The revelation hit Kale with the force of a physical blow. The locket was not just a symbol of his past grief, but a tangible link to a story he never imagined possible. It suggested that a human, specifically his wife, had not only survived but had forged a profound connection with these seemingly benevolent aliens. The implications were staggering, shattering his decades-long conviction that humanity had been utterly, irrevocably lost. This was not a relic of a dead past, but a living testament to a connection, a relationship that had somehow endured the cataclysm. His wife, the woman he had mourned for so long, had given her locket to this alien child. It was a gesture of trust, of affection, perhaps even of love. The weight of that realization pressed down on him, a bittersweet agony. If she had given it away, did that mean she was gone? Or had she entrusted it to them for safekeeping, a symbol of a promise? The question gnawed at him, but beneath the fear, a new, fragile kind of hope began to bloom. The locket was a gift from a human, from his wife, to this alien family. It was a narrative thread, tenuous yet powerful, suggesting a connection, an interspecies bond he never thought possible in the scarred aftermath of the war. It implied that humans and aliens could coexist, could even forge familial ties, a concept utterly alien to his war-hardened mind. This small, silver object, warm in his hand once more, was not just a piece of jewelry. It was a key, unlocking a door to a future he had long given up on. This was a beacon of lost hope, now brilliantly rekindled. The locket, warm in his hand once more, was not just a piece of jewelry. It was a key, unlocking a door to a future he had long given up on. This was a beacon of lost hope, now brilliantly rekindled. The adult aliens, seeing the profound impact of their gestured narrative, began to move, beckoning Cale with soft, inviting vocalizations and patient gestures of their tentacles. They led him deeper into the overgrown sector, navigating through a winding path that only they seemed to know, a path carefully concealed from the casual observer. It was a journey into the heart of a secret, a passage from the known desolation into an unexpected haven. He followed, his senses overwhelmed, his mind struggling to keep pace with the dizzying cascade of new information. The air grew warmer, infused with the subtle scent of exotic flora and something else, a faint, earthy aroma that spoke of life, of sustenance, of comfort. They emerged into a hidden clearing, a natural amphitheater carved from the ruins, roofed partially by enormous, ancient trees and partially by salvaged, translucent panels that filtered the harsh sunlight into a soft, ethereal glow. This was their hidden, makeshift camp, an advanced yet primitive settlement designed for discretion and survival. It wasn't a sprawling city, but a nexus of life in the heart of death, a testament to ingenuity and resilience. Within the camp, Cale's eyes widened, scanning the environment with a mix of awe and bewildered recognition. The dwellings were organic, almost cocoons woven from local materials and advanced synthetic fibers, blending seamlessly with the natural decay of the surroundings. Small, glowing lanterns pulsed with soft light, illuminating various stations where the aliens went about their tasks with quiet efficiency. But what truly captivated him were the objects scattered throughout the camp, not as random refuse, but as cherished possessions. Here, a small, carefully preserved human artifact, a child's drawing, rendered in brightly colored crayons, depicting a stick-figure family beneath a cheerful, impossibly yellow sun. There, a worn, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age, its title in a language Cale recognized as Old English. Further on, draped over a low, plant fiber chair, was a tattered piece of human-made fabric, a faded floral pattern, undeniably from an earth textile mill. These weren't relics of a forgotten past to be studied or salvaged. They were integrated into the daily life of this alien community, imbued with meaning and care. These weren't just objects. They were carefully preserved memories, fragments of a lost civilization treated with reverence. The largest of the adult aliens, the one who had gestured Cale to follow, then approached him. With deliberate, slow movements, it pointed to the child's drawing, then to the worn book, then to the fabric. Each gesture was accompanied by a soft, melodic vocalization. Then, its tentacle extended towards Cale, and it pointed to him, then to the various human artifacts, and finally, using a universal translator that, while still rudimentary, now seemed to function with greater clarity, it spoke a single, profound word. Human. The translation was imperfect, a little gravelly, but utterly comprehensible. It pointed to another part of the camp, deeper within the natural shelter, where a small, carefully constructed meditation circle lay. Within it, on a smooth, flat stone, rested a collection of similar human objects, placed with intentionality, as if on an altar. Then, the alien gestured again, its tentacles sweeping across the collection of artifacts, and again, the translator struggled, but delivered a message that resonated deep within Kale's soul. She taught us. She lived with us. Cherished. The words were broken, imperfect, but the meaning was unmistakably clear. A human, a woman, had lived among them. She had taught them, cherished them. The fragments of hope that had dared to flicker within Kale now ignited into a roaring blaze, chasing away decades of cold despair. His wife, the woman who had held the locket, had not only survived but had lived, breathed, and loved with these gentle, tentacled beings. She had created a new life, a new family, a powerful testament to humanity's enduring spirit, even in the most desolate of times. The raw emotion of this revelation threatened to overwhelm him, a tidal wave of grief, relief, and an almost unbearable joy. His wife, the woman who had held the locket, had not only survived but had lived, breathed, and loved with these gentle, tentacled beings. She had created a new life, a new family, a powerful testament to humanity's enduring spirit, even in the most desolate of times. The raw emotion of this revelation threatened to overwhelm him, a tidal wave of grief, relief, and an almost unbearable joy. The pieces, once scattered and meaningless, now began to click into place with agonizing clarity. The strange energy readings, the benevolent aliens, the locket, the human artifacts, it all formed a coherent, staggering narrative. His wife, and quite possibly others, had not perished in the inferno of the initial cataclysm. They had been rescued, saved from utter destruction by these compassionate, tentacled beings. The aliens, seeing the dawning comprehension in Kale's eyes, seemed to understand his unspoken questions. They continued their explanation, now with a greater sense of urgency and shared purpose. Through a combination of their intricate gestured language, their melodic vocalizations, and the rudimentary but increasingly effective universal translator, the story of survival unfolded before Kale. They explained how, in the chaotic aftermath of the war, as Earth burned and humanity scattered, their own scouts had discovered a small pocket of human survivors. Among them was a woman, whose description, her vibrant hair, her intelligent gaze, her innate kindness, perfectly matched Kale's wife. These aliens, whose own civilization valued life and empathy above all else, could not stand by and watch. They offered sanctuary, extending their protection and aid to the desperate humans. They spoke of the initial fear and distrust, slowly eroded by his wife's unwavering spirit and her capacity for understanding. She had been a guiding light, a bridge between two vastly different species, teaching them about human resilience, about love, and about the deep-seated yearning for connection. The young alien child, who had initially retrieved the locket, seemed to sense the depth of Kale's connection to the narrative. It shuffled forward, its large violet eyes fixed on him, and with a soft chirp, pointed one of its delicate, prehensile fingers towards a unique piece of human jewelry that lay nestled amongst the cherished artifacts in the meditation circle. It was a necklace, intricately crafted, with a central pendant that was unmistakably the counterpart to Kale's wife's locket. This piece, unlike the locket he now held, was adorned with numerous small, iridescent pearls, each one seemingly representing a significant memory or event. The adult alien, seeing Kale's gaze drawn to the matching necklace, then pointed to the young alien child, then to the necklace, and finally, made a sweeping gesture that encompassed the entire alien community. The translator, its voice now tinged with a soft, almost reverent tone, uttered a single, powerful word. Mother! The revelation struck Kale with the force of 1,000 suns. The young alien child, not just a keeper of his wife's memory, but a child who had known her, loved her, and regarded her as a mother figure. His wife, alive, had not only survived but had integrated herself into this alien family, becoming a matriarch, a protector, a source of love and wisdom for these benevolent beings. The locket he held, and its matching counterpart, were not just symbols of his past love, but testaments to her profound influence and enduring spirit. She had built a new family, a new life, not out of necessity, but out of compassion and a boundless heart. The implications were immense, reshaping his entire understanding of loss, survival, and the very nature of family. The tears that finally escaped Cale's eyes were not born of grief, but of a profound, heart-wrenching understanding of the incredible legacy his wife had forged. The tears that finally escaped Cale's eyes were not born of grief, but of a profound, heart-wrenching understanding of the incredible legacy his wife had forged. The older alien, observing Cale's raw emotion, gently placed a tentacle on his shoulder, a gesture of deep empathy. Then, with a softened vocalization, it conveyed a difficult truth, one Cale had subconsciously dreaded even as hope blossomed. The translator, now working with surprising clarity, articulated the words, "She is no longer with us." Cale's heart, which had soared with the discovery of her survival, now plummeted, but the fall was cushioned by the overwhelming context of her life. He instinctively understood. There was no pain, no struggle in the alien's expression, only profound respect. With slow, deliberate movements, the aliens led him to a quiet, hallowed space within the camp. It was a small, reverent memorial, a simple stone cairn adorned with fresh, vibrant alien flora and a few more carefully placed human artifacts, including a small, hand-carved wooden bird, delicate and clearly made with love. This was not a grave of despair, but a shrine of remembrance. Cale stood before the cairn, the devastating news of her physical absence intertwining with a profound sense of relief and pride that brought a fresh wave of tears to his eyes. His wife had indeed survived the cataclysm. She had not been lost to the void or to senseless destruction. She had lived, not merely existed, but truly lived. She had found a new purpose, a new family, and had forged a connection between species that defied all his war-hardened cynicism. His grief was still present, a dull ache in his chest, but it was now tempered by an overwhelming sense of honor. She was not lost in vain, an anonymous casualty of war. Instead, she had lived a full, impactful life even after he believed her gone, leaving behind a legacy that was both tangible and deeply spiritual. The knowledge that she had continued to embody the very best of humanity, even while he had succumbed to despair, filled him with an unexpected, fierce pride. The aliens, through their now more sophisticated translator, explained further. Cale's wife, they conveyed, had taken ill. It was not a violent end, but a peaceful passing, surrounded by those she loved and those who loved her in return. She had dedicated her later years to teaching them, sharing stories of humanity's past, its triumphs and its flaws, and imparting lessons of empathy, resilience, and the enduring power of connection. She had fostered within them a deep understanding of human culture, a reverence for life, and a burning hope for a future where all beings could coexist. The locket, they clarified, was not just a symbol of her enduring spirit and hope for reunion with her own kind, but also a token of her love for the young alien child, a tangible piece of her to carry on her teachings and her memory. It was a bridge she built, consciously, intentionally, knowing its power to connect. They spoke of her strength, her wisdom, and her boundless capacity for love. She had taught them to cherish the small things, to find beauty in resilience, and to always look for the light, even in the darkest of times. Her memory was not one of sorrow, but of inspiration and living example. The locket was indeed a reminder of her, but it was also a symbol of her belief in Cale, her hope that he, too, would find his way back to light, that he would connect with this new family she had created, and carry on the work of building bridges. It was a testament to her enduring spirit and hope, a legacy not of static remembrance, but of active, living purpose. Cale watched the young alien, the child who now gently held his wife's locket, interacting with the older tentacled beings. There was an undeniable warmth in their exchanges, a profound sense of belonging that transcended species. He saw the adult aliens patting the young one's head with their soft tentacles, heard the gentle, melodic vocalizations that clearly conveyed affection, and witnessed the playful nudges exchanged between them. It was a mirror, a shimmering reflection of the family he had believed lost forever, erased from existence in the brutal fires of war. This alien child, with its large, expressive violet eyes, clearly regarded his wife not just as a mentor, but as a cherished maternal figure, a guiding star in its young life. The way it cradled the locket, occasionally touching it with reverence, spoke volumes of the deep bond that had formed, a bond that blurred the lines between biological lineage and spiritual connection. A profound shift began within Cale, an undeniable stirring in the depths of his soul. His initial, crushing despair, the pervasive sense of an irreparable void, slowly began to give way. It wasn't an immediate disappearance of grief, but a transformation, a softening around the edges of his pain. Bittersweet acceptance settled over him, like a warm, comforting blanket woven from sorrow and wonder. His wife's spirit, he realized with a breathtaking clarity, lived on. Not just in the echoes of memory, not just in the fading photographs, but vibrantly, palpably, in this thriving, hopeful alien community she had fostered, in the values she had instilled, and in the love she had given and received. Her legacy was not confined to human history. It was a living, breathing testament to her boundless capacity for connection, flourishing in the most unexpected of places. It was a tangible continuation of her essence, a new branch on the family tree he thought had been wholly uprooted. He watched the child mimic one of the older aliens, attempting to weave a complex pattern with plant fibers, a task his wife had likely taught both of them. There was a joyful clumsiness in its efforts, met with patient encouragement and gentle guidance from the adults. Cale felt a renewed sense of purpose stirring within him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in decades. This wasn't about revenge, or even merely survival. This was about continuing her work, about honoring her spirit, about protecting this fragile, beautiful testament to her love. His isolation, once a heavy cloak, now felt like a veil that had been lifted, revealing a world far richer and more complex than he had ever dared to imagine. The aliens, highly attuned to emotional nuances, sensed the shift within him. The elder, its large eyes conveying a deep, ancient wisdom, approached Cale once more. Through the translator, its voice soft and resonant, it extended an invitation that resonated deep within Cale's weary heart. Stay, it offered, the word imbued with an almost gravitational pull. Learn, share. Share in her legacy. Her hope. The invitation was not just to remain physically, but to immerse himself, to become a part of this new family his wife had helped create. It was an offer to heal, to find meaning, to contribute to the continuation of her vision. The possibility of rebuilding, not just his life, but a piece of humanity's future, seemed to shimmer before him, beckoning him forward. He looked from the locket in his hand to the thriving, vibrant alien community, then back to the gentle, expectant gaze of the elder. The choice, once unimaginable, now felt like the only path. The choice, once unimaginable, now felt like the only path. Cale, no longer a solitary exile haunted by ghosts, accepted the invitation, stepping fully into this new, unexpected reality. He spent the initial weeks in a state of quiet observation, a conscious effort to absorb the nuances of this alien culture. He watched them move with an effortless grace, their tentacled limbs a marvel of dexterity, performing tasks that ranged from precise repairs of salvaged human tech to the delicate cultivation of bioluminescent fungi. He learned their intricate communication, a blend of melodic vocalizations, complex gestural cues, and subtle shifts in epidermal coloration. It was a language of both sound and light, a stark contrast to humanity's largely verbal communication, and Cale found himself fascinated, his scientific mind reawakening after decades of dormancy. He learned of their peaceful existence, their society structured around mutual aid and a deep reverence for all forms of life. Their advanced understanding of nature wasn't just theoretical, it was practical, woven into every aspect of their daily lives. They had developed sustainable systems that recycled everything, cultivated plants that thrived in the ruined Earth's altered atmosphere, and understood the delicate balance of ecosystems with an intimacy Cale had never witnessed. Their compassion extended not only to their own kind but to the struggling flora and fauna that still clung to life on the ravaged planet. They nurtured, they healed, they protected. For creatures that had mastered interstellar travel, their commitment to the smallest, most vulnerable aspects of life was profoundly moving. Fragment by fragment, Cale began to learn their language. The young alien, the one who held his wife's locket, became an eager, patient teacher, its violet eyes sparkling with delight each time Cale correctly articulated a new sound or understood a complex gesture. He discovered that their species, the Xylosians, communicated through a form of communal empathy, sharing emotions and thoughts on a subtle psychic level, which supplemented their spoken and gestural language. This deeper connection allowed for a remarkable unity and understanding within their community, a stark contrast to the often fractured and conflict-ridden history of humanity. This empathy extended to Cale, and he felt a profound, calming influence whenever he was near them, a sense of belonging he hadn't known since before the war. In return, and with growing confidence, Cale began to share stories of his wife. He spoke of her laughter, her unwavering kindness, her fierce intelligence, and her quiet strength. He filled in the gaps for the Xylosians, painting a vivid picture of the life she led before the war, the world she came from, the dreams she held. He described human traditions, the joy of a shared meal, the comfort of a familiar song, the complex tapestry of human emotions. He spoke of his own life, of humanity's achievements and its follies, its hopes and its fears. The locket, which the young alien now often wore around its slender neck, became a tangible link between past and present, a silent witness to these shared narratives. It was no longer just a symbol of loss, but a bridge, uniting two disparate worlds through the memory of one remarkable woman. As Cale immersed himself in the Xylosian way of life, he started to understand that his wife had tasked these aliens with a grander mission, one far more profound than mere survival. She had not simply been a refugee, she had been a visionary. Through her unwavering spirit and her lessons, she had instilled in them a profound responsibility to help rebuild, to foster interspecies understanding, and perhaps most crucially, to hold on to hope. She had prepared them, not for war, but for the arduous, delicate work of peace and reconciliation. She had shown them that even in the face of overwhelming destruction, life finds a way, and connection becomes the most potent force for creation. Her legacy was not just in their memories, but in their very purpose. As Cale immersed himself in the Xylosian way of life, he started to understand that his wife had tasked these aliens with a grander mission, one far more profound than mere survival. She had not simply been a refugee, she had been a visionary. Through her unwavering spirit and her lessons, she had instilled in them a profound responsibility to help rebuild, to foster interspecies understanding, and perhaps most crucially, to hold on to hope. She had prepared them, not for war, but for the arduous, delicate work of peace and reconciliation. She had shown them that even in the face of overwhelming destruction, life finds a way, and connection becomes the most potent force for creation. Her legacy was not just in their memories, but in their very purpose. Cale's understanding deepened as he delved further into the Xylosian archives. They weren't just a single, isolated community on Earth. The Xylosians revealed that, through his wife's persistent efforts and their own advanced long-range communication capabilities, they had established connections with other scattered human survivors across the galaxy. These weren't large, established colonies, but small, often desperate pockets of humanity, clinging to existence on forgotten worlds or hidden within asteroid fields. His wife, they explained, had dedicated her final years to knitting together this fragile network, using the Xylosians' unique empathy and communication skills to locate and connect the disparate remnants of humankind. She had been a central figure in what they lovingly referred to as the Web of Hope, a clandestine interspecies alliance dedicated to mutual support and the preservation of intelligent life. It extended beyond humans. The Xylosians had also, under his wife's gentle guidance, reached out to other benevolent alien species, those who, like them, had been horrified by the galactic war and its devastating toll. These were species with diverse biologies and cultures, but all shared a fundamental respect for life and a desire for peaceful coexistence. His wife had taught them to seek out these allies, to offer aid, and to forge bonds of understanding that transcended past conflicts. The Xylosians. themselves acted as silent intermediaries, their neutral stance and empathetic nature making them ideal facilitators. They provided safe passage, shared resources, and helped establish communication channels where none had existed, all inspired by the unwavering resolve of one human woman. This hidden community, protected and nurtured by these compassionate aliens, represented the true spirit of humanity. Yeah, though not in the way Kale had once understood it. It wasn't about dominating other species or proving human superiority through brute force or technological might. Instead, it was a testament to human resilience, not merely in survival, but in the capacity for empathy, the unwavering ability to inspire hope, and the profound power to foster coexistence in others. His wife had demonstrated that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its destructive potential, but in its capacity for love, its intellectual curiosity, and its boundless spirit for connection, even across the vast chasm of species differences. She had cultivated a legacy of soft power, of quiet influence, proving that true strength lay in building bridges, not burning them. The Xylosians spoke of her vision, a future where humanity, having learned from its catastrophic past, would rise again, not as conquerors, but as respected members of a wider galactic community. A future where the lessons of the war would serve as a poignant reminder of the cost of division and the imperative of unity. They showed Kale holographic maps, faint projections of star charts marked with tiny, glowing nodes, each representing a human survivor outpost or an allied alien species. These nodes were slowly, meticulously, being woven into a larger network, guided by the principles his wife had championed. The effort was vast, spanning light years, requiring immense patience and an unshakable belief in the potential for good. As he absorbed this breathtaking narrative, the Xylosians implied that this meticulously crafted web of hope carried a grander purpose, a monumental undertaking that was still in its nascent stages. There were indeed other human survivors, many more than he had ever dared to dream. And they were not merely surviving, they were preparing. A grander reunion or a rebuilding effort, inspired by Kale's wife's vision, might not only be possible but was actively being planned. The locket, he understood now, was not just a symbol of her enduring love for him, but a key, a message, a beacon intended to draw him into this larger, unfolding story. His despair had blinded him to the possibility of a future, but his wife, through these gentle aliens, had kept that flame alive, patiently waiting for him to find his way back to its warmth. The world, once a tomb, was now a launching pad for a new beginning. The world, once a tomb, was now a launching pad for a new beginning. Kale, still reeling from the sheer magnitude of his wife's foresight and the incredible network she had painstakingly built, felt a stirring of emotions he hadn't thought possible. Admiration, awe, and a profound, aching love for the woman he had mourned, now intertwined with a burgeoning sense of responsibility. The Xylosians, sensing the whirlwind of thoughts and feelings within him, approached him with a delicate, ancient data drive. It was small, no larger than his thumb, crafted from an iridescent, alien material that shimmered with internal light. It looked incredibly fragile, yet possessed an undeniable aura of significance. The elder Xylosian, with a gesture both reverent and sorrowful, presented the drive to Kale. Through the translator, its voice hushed, it conveyed her final message. For you. She knew you would come. Kale's hand trembled as he reached for it, his heart hammering against his ribs. To finally hear her voice again, to hear her words, after decades of silence and despair, felt like an impossible gift. He struggled to maintain his composure, the anticipation a physical ache in his chest. All the years of solitude, the countless nights spent replaying her last words in his memory, condensed into this single, luminous object. He clutched it tight, feeling the warmth of the alien material against his palm, a warmth that seemed to emanate directly from her memory. He had to prepare himself, to brace for the emotional tidal wave he knew was coming. Carefully, reverently, Kale inserted the data drive into a specialized console within the Xylosian camp. The console hummed to life, projecting a soft, ethereal light. A moment of static, then her image flickered into view, a holographic projection, vibrant and lifelike. Her eyes, those intelligent, sparkling green eyes, met his across the chasm of time and loss. A gentle smile played on her lips, a smile that spoke volumes of peace and acceptance. Cale. Her voice, rich and warm and impossibly real, filled the quiet space, sending shivers down his spine. It was exactly as he remembered, filled with a strength and compassion he had almost forgotten. If you are seeing this, then you found us. You found my family. Her gaze softened, filled with an empathy that reached across the years. I know the pain you carry. I know the despair. But please, my love, do not let it define you. Our story did not end when Earth burned. It simply branched. She spoke of her journey, of being rescued by the Xylosians, of the immediate understanding she felt with their compassionate nature. She recounted her efforts to find other survivors, to build bridges, to foster understanding, not just for humanity's sake, but for the inherent value of life itself. The message was not one of despair, but of hope, love, and a resolute vision for a shared future. The locket, she continued, her holographic hand rising to touch the matching pendant around her projected neck, was meant to lead you here. It was a key, Cale, a breadcrumb for your heart. I knew you would find it, eventually. I never lost faith in you. Her voice faltered slightly, a hint of ancient sorrow, but quickly regained its strength. You were always the strongest, Cale. The one who could see the stars, even when others only saw the dust. This is our legacy now. Not just mine, but ours. To find the others. To help them. To build a new, inclusive future, one where humanity stands shoulder to shoulder with species who value life and knowledge. She paused, her eyes searching his, even across the holographic divide. I asked you to carry on this work? To be their strength, their wisdom. To be the beacon of hope I know you can be. Our family is bigger than you ever imagined. And it needs you. The locket, Cale realized with a profound, almost spiritual jolt, wasn't just a memento. It was indeed a symbol, a key, a deliberate connection meant to reunite him with this new reality his wife had helped create. It was her final message and a legacy he was now meant to uphold. His tears flowed freely now, not tears of inconsolable grief, but of profound understanding, of a love that transcended even death, and of a purpose rekindled. Her words were not an ending, but a new beginning, an invitation to step into the future she had envisioned, a future where his family was not lost, but expanded beyond all recognition. Cale, no longer a solitary exile haunted by the specters of a lost past, stood before the shimmering hologram of his wife, her words echoing through the Xylosian sanctuary. Her message, a beacon of love and purpose, had not only shattered his decades of despair but had also illuminated a path forward. He wiped the tears from his face, a raw and unfamiliar sensation, and turned to look at the Xylosian elder, a silent promise forming in his heart. His wife's vision, her unwavering belief in a future where humanity embraced its true potential for empathy and collaboration, had become his own. The ghost of Cale the scientist, the soldier, the grieving widower, began to dissipate, replaced by the nascent form of Cale, the guardian of a new legacy, a beacon for a revitalized humanity. He nodded, a firm, resolute gesture, accepting the mantle his wife had, with such foresight, bestowed upon him. He would join the alien community, not as a grief-stricken survivor perpetually looking backward, but as an active participant in building the inclusive future she had envisioned. He embraced his new role with a quiet determination. The Xylosians, sensing his renewed spirit, welcomed him fully into their fold. Cale began by meticulously cataloging his wife's research, her notes, and the vast network of contacts she had cultivated. He spent countless hours poring over her data, fascinated by her ingenious methods for interspecies communication and diplomacy. He learned how she had adapted human technology, blended it with Xylosian bioengineering, to create a secure, encrypted communication grid that spanned star systems. It was a testament to her brilliance, and her unwavering belief that understanding was the first step toward peace. He used his own scientific background to contribute, refining existing protocols, optimizing energy distribution for the hidden outposts, and even developing new, more efficient long-range scanners that could detect life signs without triggering hostile alien sensors. His mind, once dulled by sorrow, now hummed with a vibrant, renewed purpose, finding solace and profound satisfaction in the intricate work of connection. He immersed himself in the daily life of the Xylosian community, learning their complex farming techniques, assisting in the care of their unique bioluminescent flora, and participating in their communal meditations, which subtly enhanced his own latent empathic abilities. He sat with the young alien, the one who still proudly wore his wife's locket, teaching it about human history, about the concept of stargazing, and about the wonder of ancient Earth myths. In turn, the child taught him more of the Xylosian language, its melodious tones becoming increasingly familiar, helping Kale to understand their nuanced worldview. He saw in the child's bright, eager eyes a reflection of his wife's hope, her belief in the innocent potential of new generations. The emotional conclusion to his decades-long journey was not a dramatic burst of joy, but a profound, resonant sense of peace. He watched the young alien sketching in the dirt with a tentacle, its form so alien, yet its actions so universally childlike. A wave of profound connection washed over him, deeper and richer than anything he had ever known. His family wasn't gone. It had merely expanded, broadened its definition far beyond the narrow confines of blood and species. This vibrant, living community of Xylosians, linked by the enduring spirit of his wife, was his family now. The locket, no longer a symbol of agonizing loss, but of infinite possibility, nestled against the young alien's chest, a constant reminder of the bridges built, the connections forged, and the future unfolding. Kale looked up at the verdant canopy, the filtered sunlight painting soft patterns on the forest floor. He had started his journey a broken man, convinced he was the last lonely ember of a dying race. Now, he was part of something vast, something hopeful, a testament to the enduring power of love and resilience. His wife had not only saved herself, she had saved him, saved a piece of humanity, and laid the groundwork for a truly interspecies future. He closed his eyes, a gentle smile gracing his lips. He was home. If this story touched your heart, like and share. And click here for our next incredible journey into the future.